You're listening to the Darien Diaries. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a 20-something survival guide podcast. I'm your host, Darien Alexis. And in this podcast, we learn to survive and thrive together in our 20s. If you're watching, you can see we're in a new setting. I'm having my first in-person guest, so I'm super excited about that. But in our episode today, we're just going to talk about how to make friends as an adult. It's super hard, but you know what? We're going to do it together. And so I thought, who better to bring than my newest friend that I've made here in Connecticut, Lee. So, Lee, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Lee. As stated, I am Darian's newest friend, and she's also my newest friend. So we're hot on the topic of making new friends. Yeah, I'm a Taurus. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm from Connecticut.
Well, thanks for being here today. I know it's dark outside and we both work today, so we both had a long day, but still up for the convo, and I'm very appreciative of that. But I figured to get us started, we could talk a little bit about how we became friends because we didn't know each other at all before I moved to Connecticut. So, do you want to take this story or do you want me to take this story?
We could bounce
We
off
could
of
bounce
each
off
other.
each other.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'll start. So it all started when I met Cody, and Cody is Lee's cousin. And I met Cody when I was out at a bar for the 4th of July with Michael. And so we kind of hit it off. You know, I'm a little drunk, a little tipsy, so I'm getting to chat, and we're both chatting, me and Cody. So then we exchanged socials, and I didn't get to hang out with Cody again for a very long time. So I met him on the 4th of July, and then I didn't hang out again with him until Halloween when he had a Halloween party, which is where I met Lee.
Yes, and I remember it was so funny because I'm usually not the kind of person to just like go up and start talking to somebody, but I remember going upstairs to help my partner at the time. They had this very extravagant costume.
Very extravagant.
Yeah, and I had to help
Very
them.
spooky.
Yeah, I pretty much had to help them like attach a head to their head. So we were upstairs for a while. And I came downstairs and you had this like whole alien get up on, and I was like, I just like need to tell that girl how good she looks because the whole look was just so good. So I went up to you and I think I was just like, you look so beautiful. And yeah, that was really
that was it.
the rest is history.
No, seriously though, I was nervous because me and Michael had made no friends since being here, and so that's why I was so hesitant to hang out with Cody and Jason again, which is our mutual link. But it was Halloween, and me and Michael are like, okay, we are young adults, we should go out and try to be social, and they were kind enough to invite us to the party. And me and Michael weren't going to go out. So last minute, I had to run to Target and find a costume because Party City, Spirit Halloween was so picked over. And I found this purple wig at Spirit Halloween. And I'm like, this is the wig. So then I made the costume go with my wig. And so I pulled up to the party, didn't know anyone other than Cody and Jason. And like I said, I only knew them from social media. And so when I met you, you were so nice. And I was like, can I get in the back of your photo? I'm like photo bombing. And I was thinking, I'm like, I wonder if I should follow Lee and message Lee, but I was nervous.
Yeah.
And I think you DM'd me.
Yeah, it was so funny because I think we were just kind of having like the same experience
the
separately.
Internal thoughts. Yeah.
Because like I said, I wouldn't usually just go up and start talking to somebody, but there was just, I don't know, you have a very inviting presence.
Thank you.
And I feel like it was really easy to talk right away. I mean, I had a couple drinks, but I wasn't drunk, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
And it was like we immediately were like, "Oh, we like this thing that's the same,
Yeah.
and you like this, and I like this, and whatever." And I remember you and Michael were leaving, and I was coming down the stairs, and my partner at the time was like, "Oh, you have to go say goodbye to your new friend." And I was like, "I don't know. I don't want to be weird. I'm not going to go like bother her again." And as you were leaving, I like kind of tried to do like a like awkward goodbye that like wasn't heard, and I was like, "Okay, it's fine. Nobody heard that." Um
That's
and
so
I
funny.
actually it was like maybe the next day or a couple days after, I texted Cody and I was like,
Mhm.
"Hey, like, who was the girl in the
Who's the
alien
alien
costume?
girl?
I want to be friends with her." I was like, "I want to be her friend. How do I be her friend?" And he kind of like gave me a little bit of a background, and he was like, "Yeah, like, you just try to be her friend. Like, just talk to
Just
her. Don't
message
be
her.
weird." I was like, "Okay, I won't be weird." And yeah, I think I just messaged you and was like, want to be friends.
Yeah, I think
Which
you were literally like, "Do you wanna be my friend? I had fun talking to you." And I'm like, "Yes!" It's like I was so nervous to message you, but that's the first step, listeners. Just
yes,
message the
just
person you
do
wanna be
it.
friends with. Just do it.
I don't feel like anyone's ever upset that somebody wants to be their friend,
For
you know?
sure.
There's like this internal voice, or I guess it's just anxiety, but it's like something in us is like, "No, don't bother this person." But nobody if somebody messaged me and was like, "I want to be friends with you," I'm never going to be like, "Ugh,
Yeah.
that's weird." Like,
Yeah,
you know
for
what I
sure.
mean? But yeah.
And since then, we've done coffee, we've done walks, and we watched Saltburn. So we're basically like bonded together by that.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, it's been all fun things. I feel like
Yeah.
I was actually talking to my roommate before we went on like when we went on the hike and
Mhm.
for lunch, and I was like, "Yeah, like I'm really excited to see Darian because I just always feel like I like leave in a good mood because you have such a
So
like
do
bright energy."
I.
So,
So
it's
do
nice. It's very
you.
refreshing.
It is refreshing.
'Cause
I
it's been a
agree.
long time since I've, like, met a new person, you
For
know?
sure.
But yeah, that's part of the 20s making friends.
Literally, if it wasn't for like Lee and Cody and Jason, and then I had my friend Alice and Chris here, like I would have left Connecticut by now. I was like so sad. And now that I have them, I'm like happy again. I'm full of life. I'm like, ah, friends. But yeah, you need to put yourself out there. So I did bring my Darien diary with us with some questions. So we kind of talked about our personal story, but do you have any other personal experiences that you want to share about making friends as an adult?
Hmm. I mean, I would say, like, ours is a good example, and it also kind of in a way, because it went well, it's
Hmm.
kind of been inspiring me to put
To do it
myself out
more?
there a little bit
Hmm.
more, because it was already a goal of mine. Because I feel like I was in a bit of a transitional period with like friends and trying to like find where I belong or whatever that
Hmm.
means. Um, so yeah, I've been trying to extend a hand out more to like old friends that I might have lost touch with that moved
Hmm.
away, or just, you grow apart or whatever, but there was never tension. Um, and yeah, I've been, ironically enough, on the apps looking for friends, like
Yeah,
Bumble
no.
BFF and
I
stuff
use
like
Bumble
that.
BFF too.
Um,
That's how I met my friend Julia when I was back in Indiana.
yeah, and it's like, you get some people who, don't respond and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
most people, if you're on there, you're looking for friends.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been pleased with the confidence that I've gotten in that area recently, but still pending. So I don't have a specific story, but pending. I have a couple leads.
You have a couple leads. We
Yeah.
will come back. So Lee has some leads. I feel like I I'm pretty good at making friends. Like you said, I'm pretty extroverted most of the time. I struggled a lot in Indiana for a while until Bumble BFF.
Mm.
And for me too, I have a lot of friends. And so it's like, this sounds so bad, but like I only want to introduce quality relationships to my life. So
Mhm.
like if I'm not immediately connecting with someone or I like had a very, very positive experience, like then I'm not really, looking to make a billion more friends. I mean, you guys
Yeah.
can all be my friends, but like, you know what I'm like, I don't want to put a lot of time and effort into it
Yeah.
because I feel like as an adult, while making more friends, you do have to put a lot of time and effort in that
Mhm.
some of us don't necessarily have.
Yeah.
Like if I never reached back out to Cody and Jason, I would have never met you. I would have never met them. But like
Mhm.
there was so much time in between, so much time lost because I was like too scared and I like didn't want to put the effort in because I was like internally struggling.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a common challenge, which is kind of the next question, which is what are some common challenges that adults face when trying to make friends?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the initial one is just the putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
But I think an even bigger part of it is, like you said, the time and the effort it
Yeah.
takes. Like, we're all working, trying to get by in our own personal lives. So,
Right.
the people who you choose to spend the small amount of free time you have with is
Yeah.
very valuable.
Exactly.
So, there's that. And then there's also conflicting schedules.
Definitely.
You, God forbid you make friends with somebody who works a different shift than you. It's like you have to be like, I'm available the third week of March.
No,
If you are.
seriously.
I actually I was making plans with an old friend, and she was like, "It's looking like I'll be free the first week of March." And I was like, "Okay, so we'll plan for that. If anything changes, let me know." But this is already like the third rain check that we've had to do, and I feel like that's a really big part of friendships in your 20s is first being receptive of that and understanding. You
Yeah,
can't really take it personally, but also being like, "Okay, there's a lot of trial and error with actually making the plans, following through."
definitely.
Something I also struggle with is being consistent with phone communication, because that is a
Mhm.
big part of maintaining your friendships, folks.
Mhm.
You have to text
Yep.
people back, and I have a very hard time with that.
No, definitely. Like the friend, since a lot of my friends are long distance, I would say that's like a main challenge.
Mm,
And I feel like I'm pretty good at phone communication, but a lot of my friends aren't.
mm.
But then that leads to me being like frustrated sometimes.
Yeah,
So that kind of stinks. But like when you're making new friends, you kind of have to be willing to speak
yeah,
with them a little bit more because you don't have that established communication or established friendship or bond. I don't know what I'm trying
yeah.
to say. Like with high school friends and college friends, it's like we already established a friendship. If I'm not talking to them for a month, I'm still friends with them, even though we're
Mhm,
not communicating. But like, for example, there's two other girls that I tried to be friends with while living here, and I hung out with each of them once, and I liked both of them, but then we didn't continue talking or anything. So I feel
mhm.
like the ship kind of sailed.
Yeah,
And if they were to like reach out again, I would totally be like, yeah, let's hang out. Just that next conversation never really came.
yeah,
And I'm like, oh, no, I don't know if I want to say anything because I'm like, maybe they didn't like me because they didn't really like hit me up for a second date, you know?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, it is challenging because coming from someone who's not good with their phone, it's like never ever personal. Well, I guess sometimes
sometimes.
it's personal, but for the most part, if it's my friend, it's almost never personal. It's just a matter of like, I looked at your text, I responded up here, not down here. And then I put my phone, especially with what I do for work. I'll see a
Mm,
text and I'll have every intention of answering it, and then a child is
a child.
jumping off of something or doing something crazy, and I put my phone down and hours go by, and once you open a message, it's marked as read, so you're not getting like the little,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not highlighted anymore. And then I look back like 3 days later and I'm like, oh my God, I never responded to that message. So I am actively working on that because it's definitely part of maintaining friendships.
For sure. Is there any other challenges that we can think of? I think it's definitely just communication
Hmm.
challenges. We're growing and changing as we're older, so finding people that kind of they don't always have to fit like exactly who we are. Like I don't think you need to be friends with someone that's your twin, but like just finding someone that's compatible to you
Yeah.
where you're at. Which kind of leads me to the next question, which is how has the concept of friendship evolved for you as you've gotten older? Because
Mm.
I feel like it's definitely evolved for me
Yeah.
because like in college, I saw my friends every single day, 24/7, in between classes. Like we did live together
Hmm.
essentially. And one of my college friends lives here in Connecticut, but she's over an hour away. So that's another challenge, I guess, the distance.
Yeah.
But because she's like further away, we don't see each other as much. Um, we communicate on the phone, but like, what does friendship look like for you now compared to what it looked like before your 20s?
Well, I think similar, in the sense that when I was younger, friendships were very, I don't necessarily want to side the word codependent,
Yeah.
but I definitely had a lot of codependent friendships when I was
Hmm.
younger, and I didn't even realize until I it was kind of over and I looked back and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we like needed each other to like exist."
Yeah.
Like there was no separation. Everything was shared every single day, like, and the lines almost blur in those scenarios of like I remember having friendships where one of us would start dating someone or something, and then there's like tension in the friendship because you don't have
Mm.
that like same access to the person.
Hmm.
You
I
know,
feel like I still experience that a little bit.
yeah,
I'm
it's
not gonna
hard.
lie. I am a girl's girl for a girl's girl for the days, the gays, and the she's. I want to be with my people, and I
Uh-huh.
love Michael, but for me, like my friendships are so important. But I am even experiencing now. I'm like, I don't hear from my friends anymore, and I know it's like from some of them because they have partners or like my
Mhm.
friends like talking to their partners consistent, like being codependent on their partner now, where
Yeah.
it's like hard for them to like be with their friends because they're
Mhm.
thinking about their partner.
Yeah.
So definitely I get
Yeah,
that.
and it's hard cuz obviously you want your friends to be in love and be happy,
Yeah.
especially if it's healthy love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, but it is difficult to make that separation. I also feel when I was younger, I was a little more quantity over quality.
Mhm, me too.
And I just wanted to have all the
All the
friends,
friends. Yeah.
especially friend groups. I was
Yes.
always trying to find like a group and I was trying to fit in the group, but I always had a difficult time because, at the risk of sounding pretentious, I've always been a free thinker. So when I was in friend groups, I was kind of always like, there's one person in a friend group that everybody's always kind of like, hey, like checking, or everyone's always mad at that person. Like,
Oh,
I
you
feel
felt like
like
you were that
I was
person?
always that person because I didn't like
Oh.
go on with what everybody else
Yeah.
wanted to do,
Yeah.
or like everyone's like, we don't like this person, or
Yeah.
we don't like this, or we don't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I've never been someone to follow.
Yeah.
So friend groups were hard, but I was always trying to find one that I fit into, or like trying to change things about myself so that I fit into these groups because I thought how many friends you had said something about what kind of person you are,
Mhm.
and I think I realized getting older, it's kind of the opposite. I
Yeah,
think if you have your core close friends, it says more than people who are constantly rotating through different friendships.
I agree.
Like if you don't have, and obviously it's situational, but if you don't have anyone in your life who can vouch that you've been friends for at least 5 years, I have to give a little side eye. Because why haven't you been able to keep anyone around for more than 5 years at our age, you
Yeah,
know?
I definitely see that point. But if you do fall into that category and you're listening to this, I would just, sit and reflect
Yeah.
on why you may be falling into this category and don't think that it's too late if you
No,
feel like
not
you
at
don't have
all.
any
Yeah.
friends. But just maybe like, yeah, reflect on why that is.
Yeah.
And if it's truly, truly because all the friends you had weren't quality, that's okay. You can still make friends as an adult, which is what this whole episode is about. Like
Yeah.
it's not too late for you to find your crew, your tribe. That's so
Yeah.
cringe.
Well, no, and that's why I said it's situational because obviously sometimes you just don't meet the right people until a certain point in your life.
Hmm.
But I'm more so referring to the idea of constantly changing friends or
Oh, okay.
people who like always have problems with other people in their life, like
Like
drama and things like
drama.
that.
Save the
I
drama
feel,
for your mama.
yeah, I feel like that's kind of like,
I get what
I
you're
don't
saying
know.
there.
My opinion on that kind of changed as I got older, I guess. And yeah, I think those are definitely the ways. Also, finding people who align with personal growth is a big
Yes.
part of it.
Yes.
Because when I was younger, I didn't really care because I wasn't
No,
really
definitely.
dedicated to that. But now the red flags really glow.
Yeah.
They are luminous. Um, and that also adds another challenge, I would say,
Mhm.
is like you can meet someone and connect really well and then, start to pick up on things about their lifestyle or their views or whatever. And it puts kind of like is this person going to add to
Yeah,
my life or are they going to take from my
right.
life?
And
So,
so, what we're saying, listeners, is it's easy to just make friends as an adult, but we're here today to talk about how to make quality friends.
mhm.
And so, do you have any specific strategies that you found effective in making friends so far as an adult?
The
Reach out
internet
to
is huge.
anyone, and if you DM someone, the worst thing they can do is not respond or be like, no, I don't want to be your friend. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, just know that that's okay if that's how they
Yeah.
respond. I think we've already mentioned that's not a reflection on you. Use your community. If
Mm.
you're a person that's into religion, you could meet someone at your place of worship. If you're into fitness, you can maybe start going to the same fitness class over and over and meeting people there.
Yeah.
My aunt gave me this idea. My aunt used to live in Connecticut, and she's like, I made all my friends through the library. I was like,
Hmm.
really? And she's like, yeah, the library hosts like book clubs and different events that she used to just show up to.
Yeah.
And so she met like bookish friends. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe I should try
That's
that.
really cool. I put that on my 2024 vision
Vision board.
board, was to like take a class of some sort or
Yeah, like an
join some
art
kind of
class.
club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adult dance classes. I know
Mhm.
I would love that. But I think any sort of club, because you already have that shared experience that you like to
Yeah.
do, I think could be great. Or there's like running clubs, or you have to look for them. But
Yeah.
I know they're out there if you're
For
just,
sure, especially in the area you live in
hmm.
specifically. Even I'm kind of out in like the
Oh, like
sticks
here.
a bit
Yeah.
more, but
One thing Michael's been trying to do is start a band. And so he was
Mm.
researching and he found an app for other artists that are looking to start a band. And there was actually a ton of people in the area, and we weren't
That's really
expecting that.
cool.
So he hasn't had his chance yet to make friends. So he's hoping that through this, he can make some friends and bandmates.
That's
So
really
if you like
cool.
music, you could look into that app. I don't know what it is, but I can put it in the show notes. I know I do. But do you have any like online friendships?
Yes, I would
Yeah, like
say.
people you're mutuals with.
Yeah.
And so, how do you balance that with like your normal in person friends?
That's a good question. I would say almost easier in a way
Yeah.
because the stakes are much lower
Yeah.
with those kind of things. Because when I think of like mutuals, like internet friends, I think of like we swipe up on each other's stories every
Yeah.
now and
You
again.
like my
Yeah,
posts.
like
Yeah.
your post, I like your post, maybe give a little gas here and there, a laughing emoji if you said something funny type of thing.
Yeah.
And then also I've also had some really like valuable, meaningful conversations with mutuals
Mhm.
as well. Like
Yeah, me too.
if you post something that's a little more in the feels or something and someone can relate, I've found some comfort in
Mhm.
people and also been able to give comfort, especially I have a lot of just internet friends on my like close friends story,
Mhm.
and I've had people like reach out and kind of be like, I really admire how like transparent you are about things, and I look forward to like listening to your rants. And these are people who I've like never met. It's just like I have some people that just followed them because I thought they looked cool, and then they followed me back, or we
Yeah.
found each other on TikTok, or matched on a dating app but never actually went on a date, and now we're just like internet friends. So I do I hold a special place for that. But it
Mhm.
feels a bit easier to manage because it's not that I wouldn't meet these people, but it's almost like because it's just virtual, it's not that they don't feel like a person, but I don't know what I'm trying to say. It like
I get
feels
what
like
you're
they live in my
saying.
phone or
I get what
something.
you're saying. So, like, I have quite a few people that I consider like mutuals, and I've met them either through like EF Ultimate Break, like there's an ambassador program, and I just like followed the other people in it, or I've met them through hashtags, like
Mm.
looking for other bloggers and content creators, digital creators. And so I'll like DM with them all the time, like whenever I see their stuff. And I actually met one of them. I had one of them on the podcast. Her name is Jess,
Oh,
and I've never
cool.
met with her until the podcast episode when I spoke with her face to face. And like, yeah, it was kind of weird because it's like, oh, you're this person. I'm watching your life, but I've never met you.
Yeah.
But I'm still rooting for all of them too. It's like
Yeah.
so fun to have those types of friendships too. So if you're like struggling to connect with people in person in your hometown, maybe seek out some, online friendships because they can
Yeah.
be really great. Just do be wary of anyone that might be like catfishing out there or like
Yeah.
the scammers of the
Because
world.
somehow that is still a
It's still a
thing
thing.
after a whole TV show
It's still a
dedicated
thing.
to it. It is still somehow a thing.
So funny. Okay, so next I was going to ask if you could share a memorable story about a successful friendship you formed as an adult and the key factors that contributed. But I figured we could just talk about our friendship since I
Yeah,
feel like we're a success story.
I would say yes.
So, some of the key factors I think that have contributed is just the positivity.
Mm,
Like, I feel like we still talk about deep, or you know what? I think it's the vulnerability. In
yeah.
our first like friend date, we went to a coffee shop and I don't know how the conversation wiggled its way around, but we were talking about everything. We got
Mhm.
super deep in that first
Yeah.
conversation, but I think because you were willing to open up, it felt like a date on The Bachelor or something.
Yeah.
Because you were willing to like open up with me,
Yeah.
I felt like I could truly see you. And I felt like we wasted no time shedding like the "Hi, girly. How are you doing,
Yeah.
girly?" Because like that kind of stuff makes me not want to be your friend. Like if I can only talk to you about one thing, then like I mean, I guess that's fine. I could still talk to like someone about one thing, but like if we could only talk about fashion all the time, for example,
Yeah.
I'm like, I wouldn't really find the need to continue a friendship. But because we could talk about anything and we could be deep and I could like show you the true me, I felt like that was a key factor that I'm like, oh, I want to hang out with this person again.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I also remember it being like hours.
It was hours.
Like
It
we were
was.
sitting in this coffee shop for like I would say close to three
We
hours.
closed the coffee
We
shop
did we
down.
closed we had to leave because they were literally closing the coffee shop. So that
Granted,
I think
granted, coffee shops here close early.
they do. Yeah. I think it was like a 3 p.m. or 4
Yeah,
p.m.
yeah,
close or
yeah.
something like that. But yeah, no, I would say same, like just being able to kind of get it all out there. And I don't remember feeling awkward at
Like
all.
yeah, or uncomfortable. You never want to feel uncomfortable. Like it is a little nerve-wracking to meet a person, but if you ever feel like unsafe or just really in your gut uncomfortable, then I would say that's like not a good friendship.
Yeah, that's probably your intuition being
Yeah.
like, "Hey,
Hey,
we're in danger."
bestie.
Yeah.
Time to get out of here.
Um, but yeah, so like just being able to talk. And I also remember I remember texting you afterwards and being like, "I'm sorry if I talked so much. The caffeine was really it was doing the caffeine thing." Um and I think that's just like a habit I have of like I'll like leave a social situation and then start
Like thinking
analyzing every
about
single
it.
thing. But I also look back at it now and I'm like, no, we were like both talking.
I
And it
talk
was
so
like, yeah,
much.
we both talk very much. So I didn't yeah, I don't know. It's just it was so refreshing. And I feel like I remember telling you too, I'm like, East Coast people aren't the most friendly.
It's
So
true.
I was
Coming
very
from I'm from the Midwest, y'all. OHIO. I just does say OHIO in my
yeah.
head. Okay, okay. I forgot what hat I was wearing for a second, and I'm like, I can't see in the camera, so that would have been really embarrassing. But like, no, for sure. I love all my coworkers now, but I feel like I worked there for everyone was like nice, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I didn't start forming like actual relationships with a lot of my coworkers till like a few months in.
Yeah.
Whereas like at my other jobs in the Midwest, it's like day one and people are like, all right, let's go get drinks. Like, you're coming home with me. Like, here's a pie.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, that's good to have. Like, people here are still nice once you meet them, but I feel
Yeah.
like it takes time for people to warm up here
Mhm.
a little bit more.
Yeah, it's kind of just and it's not necessarily yeah, it's not to say people on the East Coast are mean.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of our culture around
Yeah.
here to kind of be like head down, I'm busy, don't talk to like
Yeah.
you
Like,
don't
you're focused
see
on what you have going on.
yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people, I don't want to say are more established here, but it seems like, I don't know, every single person that I've met here in Connecticut has been in Connecticut their whole life.
Mm.
Whereas I feel like in Ohio,
It's like quicksand.
a lot of people in Ohio are like, all right, I'm getting out of Ohio.
Mhm.
Um, so I feel like a lot of people are like very comfortable here
Yeah.
with like what they have going on. So they're not necessarily, I'm not saying that they're not. If you're on the East Coast, you're not doomed. You can still make
Yeah.
friends.
You can still leave.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, yeah, I feel like they're a little bit more established. So yeah, there's that kind of
Yeah, and it's
culture
almost
difference.
like we get like specifically New England, it's like we have a little bit of that like that city kind of like fast. No one's really like stopping to talk in the grocery store. Like it happens, but
Mhm,
for the
mhm,
most part, it's not the kind of place where you're walking down the street saying hello to everyone.
mhm.
Whereas like a lot of people will say
Okay.
when they go, people from here, like when they go to like the West Coast or the Midwest or something, they're like, everyone talks to you. And it's like so crazy if you're from around here because it's like almost like a culture shock.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that being said, meeting you, I was like, oh my gosh, she's so not from New England. Like she's so friendly.
She's not one of us. Which is so funny because like me and Michael when we went out, we went out a lot and I feel like I always tried to like kind of start combos with people and it
Mhm.
wasn't until Cody that I was successful.
Yeah.
So,
And that's in a bar where people
yeah,
are
and that's in a
drinking. You
bar.
would think they would want to talk.
Yeah, it's I feel like people I would walk into a bar here and people just like already are with their friend groups and they're just like giving me like the side eye.
Yeah. No, it's hard. I that was kind of like why I feel like I was striking out for a
Mm,
long time.
mhm.
Because yeah, you do, there's kind of like a, it's intimidating around
Mhm.
here because people have their stuff and it's established, they have their friends. And it's not impossible.
Yeah, it's
If you
not
find somebody who
impossible.
just moved here, though, definitely definitely jump on that.
Thank you.
But there are people here, hence me being one of them, because I am the kind of person where I do want to have that small talk and I want to like smile at people. And I catch myself doing it a lot, and I'm like, oh, I'm being weird. I'm like making it
No.
weird.
No, you're
But
not making it weird. Do you feel at all that there are any misconceptions about making friends as an adult that we should debunk? One,
Hmm.
it's not impossible.
It's
Oh,
not
wait, is that a
impossible.
misconception?
I'm not sure.
Anyways, just we're just saying it's not impossible to make friends as an adult. Living proof.
Yeah, and it's not, it doesn't have to be a big ordeal either. It can kind of just be, you can just be like, "Hey,
It can
want to
just be
grab
chill.
coffee sometime?"
Yeah.
Or
Oh, I guess I feel like that can be one. I feel like a lot of people think, "Oh, if I don't go out, if I don't drink, I can't make
yes.
friends," because you can only make friends at the bar.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of my friends feel that way with dating too, like, "Oh, I will never meet anyone because I don't like to drink." So, I'm just that's the only way you can meet people as an adult. I do not agree with that. As I've already mentioned, you can meet them online, which so many people at your fingertips. You can meet them in at church. You can meet them at a coffee shop. You see someone that's sitting there doing their reading a little book, go up to them, say, "Hey, I love that book," or "Hey, what book is that?" Just start a conversation.
Yeah,
It does take a lot of courage, though.
it
I'm
does.
not gonna lie.
Almost in a way, I think we had talked about this the day that we met. It almost feels more like nerving than a first like romantic date
100%.
or going up to somebody in a romantic sense, because I guess maybe in a shallow way you can kind of be like, oh well, I'm only to an extent relying on my looks. If it's like a romantic situation, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, if I look good, then I at least have that. But when it's like a friend, it really is like
It's
based
huge.
on your, yeah, who you are and
It
how
feels
you
more
present
vulnerable.
yourself, for sure. Um
And I feel like with romantic situations too, there's just like some things you would never ask someone because you don't want to come off a certain way.
yeah.
Whereas like when you're trying to make a friend, the conversation might veer a different way.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know if the first time I'd ever hung out with a friend, I'd be like, "So how many kids do you want to have?
Yeah.
Like, what are you actually looking for?"
Yeah, what's your 5-year plan?
But like with a friend, it's like, "Oh, I don't know. The conversation is just different." So
Yeah.
it feels a little bit more vulnerable in a sense
Hmm.
because of that. Um, how do you navigate the balance between work, family, and social life when trying to make new connections? We talked about this a little bit,
Yeah.
but do you want to dig a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, I feel like it's actually been something I've been paying a little bit more attention to
Because
recently.
of me?
Well, yeah.
Just
um,
kidding.
and also just like I've been, like I said, reconnecting with certain people and
Mhm.
just trying to, I guess, socialize a bit more. It's the winter. Winter's hard. It's dark and
Winter's
sad.
hard. Yeah.
So in my free time, I've been trying to just spend it with people who make things not seem so sad.
Mhm.
And the balance is the difficult part because I'm such a creature of like, I need to be in solitude to recharge.
Mm.
So I have to find the perfect line of being like, okay, I socialized, but I also had my like reset.
Mhm.
Um, so sometimes it'll be like, oh, I work my work week, and then if I do something on both weekend days, it almost doesn't feel like I had a
Oh
day
my god, yeah,
off,
for
you know?
sure.
So trying to like reserve Sundays. I think last Sunday you had said like, yeah, I need to do my like Sunday prep for the
Yeah.
week. I feel like that is so important, like not giving all of your time to any specific
Yeah.
thing.
And I feel like that's where I struggle a lot. I
Mhm.
usually don't say no. I usually like I'm like, okay, I want to hang out with this person, but I'm like, I also need time for me. And I feel like a lot of times on Sundays are when I'm free. So it's like, oh, that's a good day for me to like record a podcast episode or something. But then if I'm doing that, then I'm not necessarily just like being or like resetting for work. Like
Yeah.
Sundays are the days that I'm typically like up with like in the morning cleaning, getting my whole life together to go back
Yeah.
in on Monday.
Mhm.
So it's definitely a hard balance, but sometimes I do feel like me personally, even if I'm not in like the best mood or I'm not really in a hangout-y mood, I feel like sometimes I don't want to say sacrifice, but I do sacrifice that feeling in order to further connections
Yeah.
because I know at first, like with Cody and Jason, I had met them in July, like I said, and then I didn't hang out again till October. So after Halloween, I was like, wow, I really do like them. Like I want to hang out with them more. But because of that, I had to give up a little bit of my free time that I
Yeah.
had previously so I could continue to like form that friendship.
Yeah. No, and I think really the key to that is finding the middle ground of like not doing that all the time,
Hmm.
but maybe basing it off of situation.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I met somebody a couple of weeks ago who I've been enjoying spending time with, and I've kind of made some time to see her for the past few weekends.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, like this is somebody who I want to see. Doesn't mean that we're going to hang out every weekend forever,
Yeah.
but like kind of understanding that this is like a developing connection and
Yeah.
it makes sense
To like see
to,
each other more in the beginning so you
yeah,
can form that friendship.
exactly. But and even with work too, like not always picking up extra shifts, not
Mhm.
always, and obviously that's also based off, what your income needs are. Sometimes you do need to pour it all into work, and that's okay too. But there needs to be a balance with each thing and with like friends versus family. I mean, in my
Mhm.
scenario, I'm lucky that Cody is one of my closest friends and a part of my family. So I feel like
Mhm.
it's checking two boxes.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think for me, the easiest way to balance it is kind of like doing that self check in thing. Like, when's the last time I just had a day for me? Or when's the last time that I planned a day with someone and
Mhm.
kind of like basing it off what I think I can handle?
Yeah, or like what
Um,
you most recently did
Having a
almost.
planner is huge because you can
Yes.
kind of look back on everything that you've
Mhm.
done very easily.
Got mine.
Yeah.
I do schedule my friends in here.
Yeah, you have
I'll be like,
to.
"Okay, 6:30, Lee's gonna be here. 8:30, Darian's in bed."
I also I kind of like being able to look back too. Like I this is a bit of a hoarder tendency of mine, but I like keep all of my planners.
Oh, mhm.
And sometimes I like to be like, "Oh, like I spent this day with this person and we did
Yeah.
this or whatever."
I'm
And
a
I'll
memory
like
hoarder.
yeah, and it'll be like after the fact, I'll go back and add what I did with
Mhm.
that person on that day so I can remember. But yeah, planning ahead.
Mhm.
It's all in the details.
Yeah, I agree. And so next we're going to talk a little bit about what advice we have for someone, so you listeners who may be struggling to build meaningful friendships in their adult years. And so I was speaking with my friend about this because she's like, "You're so good at making friends. You moved away. You're not here for me, like to hang out with. What do I do now?" And so one of the strategies I gave her was to reconnect with people you used to be friends with.
Mhm.
So, like, if there was someone you used to be friends with and you may have just kind of fizzled out a little bit, if you still want to be friends with them, you can try to connect with them and see if there's still like something that can be like repaired there. Not saying that it
Mhm.
was necessarily broken,
Yeah.
but I feel like that's a good starting point is working with the people you already have in your
Yeah.
circle or in your past. And if that's something that doesn't work out for you, um, another piece of advice would just be to get out of that comfort zone, which we've already talked about
Yeah.
so many times.
Yeah, and I would also say too, like kind of to bounce off of that once you're there, if you've taken those steps and now you're in the social setting or whatever, I think a huge part of it to excuse me, build like a valuable connection is like really being yourself, like
Mhm.
not trying to shield any part of yourself kind of
I
right off the
agree.
bat because someone it's almost like giving somebody the opportunity to take you at your truest self. And
Yeah.
if that's what they like, because
Mhm.
obviously you want somebody to like you for who you are. So if you make a new friend, kind of laying it all out there, this is who I am. And then you're going to find the people who actually like you for you.
Yeah.
Um,
And on the other side of that, I feel like in order to create meaningful friendships, if it's something you're struggling with, maybe don't be so judgmental. I feel like
mm,
it's so easy for us to like get the ick from people so quick,
yeah,
whether romantic or even just friends, or like, "Oh, this person didn't text me back fast enough, or this person didn't do this," because especially if it's a newer friendship, you don't know what's going on in their life
for sure.
100%. For example, I'm so grateful, once again, bringing it back to Cody and Jason, like they could have just not texted me back because so many months went in between when I met them.
Hmm.
But then we would have missed out on that connection because they didn't know the reasoning behind why I wasn't responding. And I was
Yeah,
the one that was wrong in that situation. I know I can own up to that. But just trying your best to not be judgmental, be open, and give people a few chances before you decide if it's something you want to pursue further in the friendship. I feel like
yeah.
is important to build the actually meaningful
Yeah,
relationships.
and I also can say from experience, like there's been some people who maybe have given me the ick at initial meeting, and maybe not even the ick, but maybe a little unsettled,
Yeah.
is a nicer way to put it. And those have been some of my favorite people,
Mhm.
because I'm very drawn to that, like being your authentic self, even if it makes people uncomfortable. I'm like,
Mhm.
you know what? Like, be a fucking weirdo. I'm
Yeah.
I'm here for that. I don't know how to talk to you right away. I don't know how to respond to this, but I love it. Um, and like, I think that's so important to just like come into the situation with like your truest self, just
Yeah.
showing right away.
Yeah. Especially if you're still living where you grew up, who you were in high school is not who you are now.
Mm,
And so I think that's another thing because I like was talking to my friend about this and I'm like, maybe there's people from high school that you'd enjoy hanging out with. Like you're still in the same town, they're in the same town. no, you didn't like each other back then, but people change like
Yeah.
growing up. So I think it's something worth circling back to. And I always try to remember that, like when I'm looking online and seeing people, I know a lot of people unfollowed me because they didn't like me in high school, but like I don't want them to still hold who I was back then against me
Yeah,
now.
it's because it's so different.
It's
Everyone
so
is so
different.
different.
And so just kind of like thinking about that if you're trying to make friends in the area you are in, because, there are a lot of new people out there, but you can still use your circle too.
Yeah.
We already touched on this one so many times, but I'll just see if there's anything else you want to say. But how important is it to step out of one's comfort zone when making new friends? And do we
Very
have tips?
important. Very
The
important.
number one most important thing.
You
And the
gotta
tip
do
is
it.
just do it.
Hmm.
Like, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
It just send the message, go up to someone. The rate of actually making friends when you do that is probably so much higher than in other situations.
Yeah. And it's also like a confidence boost.
Oh, for sure.
Because even if for some reason it doesn't go the way you planned, there's still like you still built that skill a little bit stronger. So the next time that you feel like you want to do that, it's not going to feel so scary. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
Because you're like, what's the worst that could happen? They don't want to be my friend. And then the worst happens, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, the
Yeah.
world didn't explode. Like
Yeah.
everything's fine. So,
That's funny. Are there any particular activities or hobbies that you found to be conducive to meeting new people and forming friendships?
hmm. Well, coffee. Coffee's a big
Coffee,
one. Tea.
tea. I
Um,
love me a chai tea.
Yeah, chai tea is the way to make friends. But no, especially, I don't know, just like little things like that, kind of like finding people with similar
Yeah,
interests, or
yeah.
maybe even if you want to be friends with somebody in a not creepy way, do a little bit of like investigating social media wise what this person likes, and then ask them to do something that they would enjoy as well, that you may be like.
That's a good
I'm thinking like if you see someone who's got a lot of cool vintage clothes,
go
you can be like, hey, do you
thrifting.
want to go thrifting sometime
Yeah, that's
or
a great
whatever?
idea.
Like, I bet you know a good spot because you dress so cool, like
Yeah,
things like
yeah.
that. I feel like that's good. If you are somebody who likes to to have a little sippy sip,
Little sip, little drink a
grabbing a
drink.
drink with somebody is definitely, I would say, a good tool in the sense of the inhibitions get lower and you
Yeah.
can
You open up a
talk a
little
little.
bit quicker
Yeah, for
sometimes.
sure. I hate to
Yeah.
promote going to
We're
get drunk
adults
with
here.
somebody, but yeah, we're 20
Do
somethings.
not
It's
do
fine.
not drink under the age of 21. We're
Drink
not promoting
responsibly.
that. Yeah, drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive.
Yeah. Take an Uber, meet a new friend, whatever. But yeah, because that a lot of people do, partake in like the bar scene,
Mhm.
and that's a really easy way to, connect with somebody. Um, and yeah, like we said before, classes.
Classes. My sister specifically, this is why I said it. She started going to a church that was kind of out of town for her, but a lot of her best friends now are all associated like with her church.
Mm,
So if you are religious, I know a lot of my listeners are, use that. Volunteering for different
mm,
things. That's
yeah,
something that I would like to do. I always forget that a lot of neighborhoods too have like volunteer groups and stuff. Or do
yeah.
they have that here? In the Midwest, they do. They'll have like neighborhood type meetings
I
and
want
stuff
to
like that.
say yes. I know that I've never been a part of one, but I
No,
want
me
to say
either.
that they exist.
Make friends that way. Go to your
Yeah.
local pool. Go to your local library. We already gave a library shout out, but I'll give that again. Um, Other than that, oh, there's like different apps and Facebook groups you can
I was
join.
just about to say, I've
Yeah,
met some mutuals and internet friends and stuff through Facebook groups because there's some very niche
super
Facebook groups you
niche.
wouldn't
Or like
think.
okay, Discord chats. That probably
Mm-hmm.
I forget too that we're like the last people on Facebook. So
Very
anyone
true.
younger than us listening to this is like, ew, Facebook.
Yeah.
So maybe like Discord, which I'm not a fan of Discord. I think Twitch has stuff too if you're into like
Mm,
gaming. There's just so many different opportunities for stuff like that. I know like Michael too has made some friends through like video gaming.
yeah,
So
that's
if
a big
that's what you
one.
like to do, do that or like club teams. I'm not a sports girl, but like
No.
soccer teams
Yeah.
or volleyball teams. My sister joined a volleyball and then I had a friend in DC that joined a kickball league to
Mm,
meet some friends. So those are some really great options too, or even just attending events. I know like Barnes and Noble has like different events. There's not one really close to here, but about an hour away there's one. So going to the things that interest you and just finding the people there.
yeah. Also, friends of friends
Friends of
is a good
friends,
tool as
friends of
well. Yeah.
friends.
Um, like if a friend, I mean, I guess that's a perfect example, but like if a friend is having a gathering and you're like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to know
Yeah,
anybody." Just go. You might meet somebody.
absolutely. Do you feel like the pandemic affected your approach at all to making friends?
Hmm.
And if so, how do you feel like that has kind of adapted?
I mean, I would definitely say in the sense of crowd. I just feel very different in crowds in
I thought you were gonna
general.
say crying for something. I'd be like, me too. Me too.
Very emotional
No, I
since the
agree with that
pandemic.
too. I feel like I never had anxiety before the pandemic and now I have it really bad,
Hmm.
especially in crowds. I feel like I was super extroverted. Now I'm more introverted.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I do not like to be in huge like
No,
public
I'm like
setting.
thinking about the germs. I'm like looking around, like
Oh.
how many people just touched this one thing. Like that's kind of
Oh.
what's going through my head. Also,
See, I'm
just
like, I
the
just don't want to
concept.
be like packed anymore. I
Oh, that
used to
too.
like
Yeah.
love like a good mosh pit, and now I'm like, I'm gonna get the selected seating
Yeah.
type of feel.
Yeah. No. Because I would say also live music is a great way
Yeah,
to
live
make
music.
friends
Hmm.
because especially if you're seeing a specific artist, you know that everyone there, you at least have one thing in common with
Right.
them. Um,
That has been our tip throughout this. If you can find one common thing, you can go from there.
yeah, a lot of my friendships went digital during the pandemic.
Hmm.
So I would say it made me I love FaceTime now more than I ever have
I love FaceTime too.
because of the pandemic. That was like me. I had like me and my three friends. We would use Google Duo because it glitches a bit less than FaceTime
Hmm.
when you have multiple people. And we would literally sit on Duo for entire days, not even talking the whole time. Just like we
That's
were
how you
all
know a
like,
true friendship when you can
yeah,
just sit there and
you just
not
prop
talk
your
and be
phone,
happy.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you're just like going
Yeah.
throughout your day. But I definitely, I feel a little more up to like maybe I'm not available to like hang out this day, but like you still want to FaceTime for an hour or something,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
the pandemic it definitely opened my mind to, I guess, more like video chatting as opposed to
Yeah.
hanging out.
That's so valid. I haven't even thought about that so much. It's very easy for me to jump on like a 20, 30-minute call,
Yeah.
even though I may not necessarily be able to hang out, but I feel like you can definitely still connect with friends or form friendships and do things digitally. My family, for example, will play like Yahtzee over
Oh,
FaceTime or
cute.
things like that. So
Yeah.
there are ways to connect with people. Or if you're making the digital friends, you can try that instead of just DMing. Maybe jump on
Yeah.
a call or something. That's a really good
Little
example.
crazy eights, little
little,
iPhone
little,
games,
yeah, the
some
little
pool.
iPhone games. We also discussed this a bit already. It's about vulnerability. So that does play a huge part in adult friendships. So, can you discuss a little bit about navigating opening up to others in
Mm.
friendships? I know we kind of touched on this a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a fine line between like being vulnerable and oversharing, and
Hmm.
it's very
Yeah,
difficult
I'm an
to figure out.
overshare.
Yeah, it's very hard to figure out like where you're falling on that scale sometimes.
I think I erased the line.
Yeah. It's all interchangeable. No, but I guess I would say picking up on social cues, I think, is a big part of that. If you're telling a story and someone's like, "Eesh," like,
You know what you do really well? I feel like you've said this to me before, and it's something I've said to my other friends is asking the person you are talking to if they're okay with you like opening up.
yeah,
So, like, do you have the mental capacity for me to rant or vent or something
hmm,
like that? That's something that I feel like I've had to get a lot better with. But also, something that I've had to improve on a lot is being an active listener. And that's something I talk about a lot on this podcast because when someone's being vulnerable, you also need to respect them opening up. So,
yeah.
on the receiving end of vulnerability, too, I think that's something important as well to kind of think about.
Yeah. Yeah, emotional consent is huge.
Mhm.
Because yeah, you never know. Like somebody could have just had like a really heavy day and then you go and dump on them and it's like I literally don't have the arm capacity
Yeah,
to
yeah.
carry another thing, um, which I think that's also that ties into getting older because when you're
Mhm.
younger, you don't think about that. You call your friend in hysterical and you're not thinking about like what that person's doing,
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and also yeah, being an active listener, making sure that you're not just waiting for your turn to talk
Mhm.
too, I feel like
Mhm.
is huge because I feel like that happens subconsciously. It's not necessarily out of like not listening, but like sometimes you can just be getting like excited for what you're about to
Yeah.
say that like you're not fully registering what the other person is saying or whatever. But yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And yeah, just being willing to open up. I mean, I have never really had too hard of a time with that. I'm also a bit of an oversharer, but I just think, I don't know, I think it's important. It's important for people to know who you are. I'm never trying to like hide,
Yeah,
you
there's no
know.
one out there like you, and you should want to share that with the world because it's the one thing going for you is
Yeah, and
is you.
oftentimes when I do open up, people can relate. Most
Yeah.
people have gone through pretty similar things. Obviously, it's not all interchangeable, but like more often than not, you'll start, going on a tangent about something, and somebody's like, oh my God, I experienced the same thing.
Mhm.
And now you're kind of bonding and bouncing ideas off of each other about that thing. So
Definitely. And are there any signs that indicate to you a potential friend that might be worth investing some time in and being more vulnerable with?
I would definitely say, I think we said this earlier, but that like initial comfort,
Mhm.
because obviously there's going to be nerves when you're meeting a new person, but an appropriate amount of nerves mixed with like, oh, I'm comfortable in this person's presence. Someone who makes you feel good about
Yeah, someone that
yourself.
makes you happy.
Yeah, I think is huge. Somebody who isn't making you feel like they're judging you
Yeah.
or whatever the case is. I think for me, I kind of, I'm pretty intuitive. So I feel like I know pretty early on if I'm really connecting with someone because I actually was talking about this recently, more so in the sense of dating, but being like, sometimes I go on a first date and I'm like, oh, that was really fun. And then I look back and I'm like, was I having fun with them or
Or
was
was
I
you
having
just
fun?
fun?
Yeah, I was having fun and they were just there.
That is so me though. That's how I felt, like, before I met Michael, I went on a lot of first dates, and I'm like, "Oh, that was a good date. Maybe they're the one. Maybe they're the one." And I'm like, "No, I'm just a really kind, genuine person
Like,
that
I
I'm
was having a
easy
good
to
time.
talk
Yeah.
to." Yeah, definitely.
And I think that can apply to friends as well. Like,
Yeah, I
you can hang
agree.
out with somebody for the first time and kind of, like, be like, "Oh, that was fun," and then maybe reflect on it later and be like, "Was it?" Or like,
Yeah.
"Did they say anything?"
Yeah, I
Like,
think
yeah.
that the signs are is the person kind of giving back? Like, are they
Yeah.
interested in you as well? Are you the
Mhm.
only one asking questions? Do
Yeah.
they you know, like, do
You don't want
they
it to feel like a
also
job
care?
interview.
Yeah, you don't wanna like, I was kind of ghosted by this one girl, that I hung out with, and I'm like, "Okay, I don't wanna keep putting energy into this because it seems pretty apparent that she's not interested."
Mhm.
So if there's someone that you're, like, reaching out to and you keep reaching out and they're not really giving you anything back, I would say that's a sign to not continue to pursue it unless they say something and they're like, "Hey, like, I wanna hang out with you," or something.
Yeah.
But just finding the people that do take interest in you, do care, and want to, like, continue to pursue things, and I'm a huge person that, like, you kind of are who your friends are. So, as we mentioned earlier, hanging out with people that have that growth mindset and that are just genuinely good people and care and have some of the same similar like goals that you have. And, I just, I don't know. I feel like it's pretty easy to tell once you get older who those people are. Like you
Yeah.
just feel it on the inside.
Yeah, for sure. And you feel it on the inside and you can also kind of
Yeah,
observe
yeah.
as well, because sometimes with certain people you're like right off the bat like, oh, okay, like, or I guess if you have an instinct to close off,
Yeah, if you're
you
not
know.
laughing.
Yeah.
I don't wanna
Oh,
be friends with anyone I can't laugh with, let's
that's
be real.
huge. That's huge. That's just awkward.
Yeah, or
That
it's like
Yeah.
the awkward silences.
Yeah, like, if you don't at least even pity laugh at my jokes, like.
So that kind of wraps us up for today. But before we go, I do ask all my guests this one question, and it is what is the number one piece of advice or words of inspiration that you want to share with 20 somethings?
Hello, 20 somethings. Excuse a change of scenery. I am no longer in Darian's apartment. I am in my own apartment. We had realized that the last few minutes of our recording were cut short because my microphone died. And the last question was very important in both of our opinions, so we decided we would add a little snippet a few weeks later. So we're in the future. Hello. I'll be 27 in a couple of months. Um, I think something that's been really important for me, your 20s are going to be a ride, regardless of who you are. I think acknowledging that and being aware that these are the years where you're becoming an adult and you're having to face certain challenges and obstacles that you've never had to before. So I think the easiest way to maneuver and work through that is always prioritizing self-care in the sense of mental self-care. Obviously, it's important to take care of your body and eat well and skincare and hair care, whatever. But I mean self-care in the sense of taking care of your brain and your heart. Because once those things are solid and you know who you are and who you want to be and you're actively doing the work to be the best version of yourself, everything falls into place. And it sounds really cliche, and everybody, preaches that, but it really is so true. Once you make the active choice to be your best self and, like I said, put in the work, everything falls into place. And it ties into the theme of the episode as well. if you're struggling to find a community or a soul family, once you do that work, the people will find you, because you will be attracting the people who are on the same level as you and will add to your life instead of taking from it. And yeah, my biggest piece of advice is always remembering to not lose sight of who is the most important person in your life, and that is you, and letting everything else run its course, having an open mind to the lessons and the obstacles that you're going to have to learn. It's inevitable, but once you have a solid foundation, those things are so much easier to navigate. I'm not as smooth with the wording, but I hope that that came across the way that I meant for it to, because I genuinely believe this from the bottom of my heart, from my own experience. It's the most important thing that you can do. Peace and love. In the heart and the brain.
So much for coming today. I really appreciate you joining us. And I think this conversation is so important because it is super hard to make friends. So I'm very grateful that I have you to call my friend. And I hope you listeners learned a thing or two and can meet your own friends. Um, if you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, share your thoughts so we can continue to grow this podcast. Follow me on social at Darien Diaries. In our next episode, I will be having our first influencer on the pod. So make sure to tune in because this is someone outside my personal circle, which is very exciting. I hope you guys have a great day. As always, I'm Darien Alexis, and don't forget to survive and thrive.